Hello whisky fans, care to join me for a dram? 'Tis the season, December the 8th. Let's see what we've got. Someone needs to invent a dram extractor. There we go. Just checking I've got the right one, because that would be a bit of a disaster. Can't smell anything yet. Possibly haven't poured quite enough there. That's one of the downsides to not being able to see what you're doing. But that's probably a slightly, well, not necessarily more natural, but a slightly lighter colour. Medium gold there. Maybe slightly darker than medium gold. But hopefully we've got something different today, because that's the important thing. Aside from having wonderful whiskey every day, with the exception of Johnny Walker, in this whiskey advent calendar, one of the great things is that you get something entirely different every day, or hopefully at least. Cool. Getting a little bit of a alcohol burn on the nose there, because it's a little bit shy, which led me to take a slightly deeper sniff there. But then it sort of crept up and gave me a little punch in the nose there. So it's not as full and rich as some of the other drams. This one may be, I think the strongest thing that we've had so far is the Gulliver's at 47%. And this one is either just a little bit harsh, or it's possibly up there in terms of ABV, because I'm getting a little bit of a nip on the nose. Almost want to add a little touch of water to this one. I might do that in a second. Right, let's see how it tastes. Basically saying let's take a different approach, because I'm not getting that much on the nose. I don't know what to make of that. I'll be honest with you whiskey fans, I'm a bit stumped. Getting a lot of prickly heat on the nose. It's not an easy one to nose. It's quite a bit of fruitiness, quite a bit of spice, prickly spice. Getting some fruitiness, creamy caramel. I think about the only thing I can tell from this whiskey based on what I've had so far is that it is probably whiskey. I think there's a combination of bourbon and sherry casks gone into there. The ABV is probably quite, well, not cask strength, but probably higher than 46. A lot of creamy caramel notes on the nose. Probably another Speyside. I am getting some maltiness on the late palate, but this isn't immediately screaming old whiskey. Getting lots of that creamy caramel sort of flavour, but I'm not that thrilled with this one. I don't know if it's because the ABV is a bit high, perhaps. Let's try a drop of water. I've got a feeling it's not going to help. Maybe a little bit more. Got to be careful because I've not got that much in the glass, and I'm sure a lot of you seasoned whiskey aficionados will know that you don't need a lot of water at all to completely ruin a whiskey, to take it well below sort of 43-40%. So I'm just going to, just a couple of drops there, see what that does. You're going to yeah. It's probably the most well behaved my camera has ever been. I've no idea if you can see or not, but there's definitely some oiliness in there. I think you probably can see that. It's quite obvious. That, I'd say this is definitely not a chill filtered whiskey, which makes me think it's probably a craft presentation, but probably just something that I'm not a huge fan of. I think that has definitely helped. Now, any regular viewers will know that I really do like my cask strength whiskey. I quite often drink whiskey in the high 50s, maybe even low 60s, and enjoy it. And I think some very well made whiskies you can enjoy at that strength, but I think this one, I would guess, is probably a touch under 50%, maybe 48. And I think that this isn't one of those whiskies that you can enjoy at full strength. I think those couple of drops of water that I added have knocked it down just enough that it has actually opened up the nose quite a bit. It's much more pleasant to nose now. And I'm getting a more complex aroma too. Getting some spicy, slightly meaty, probably still Oloroso, maybe medium dry sherry notes. Maybe a little sulphur, a little bit of an appley aroma that's starting to grow now that I've added that water. Let's have another sip now that we've diluted it a bit. Now, creamy caramel malt, slightly bitter, short finish. Some of you are going to say, and quite rightly so, that I haven't given this long enough in the glass, and you're right. But on the other hand, I don't want to take too long for these videos because it's going to be a hell of a lot of work for me, and you probably don't want to sit through a full hour of whiskey tasting with every dram this month. But I'm going to say that the aroma, the nose, is still not that complex, not amazing, and on the palate it's still quite simple, and the finish is really quite short. Or possibly feta cane. Let's see what it is. I think this is going to be another one where I'm not remotely close. Glen Scotia. So Glen Scotia is a Campbelltown distillery. It's a distillery that I've been to. It's basically the other Campbelltown distillery. And by that I mean it's the one that's not run or at least owned by Springbank. Glen Scotia's been there for a very long time. Anyone that's been there, it's not in a very picturesque situation. It's basically in the middle of lots of terraced houses. And I think when I went there, it's 2015, they were just transitioning from the old Highland Cow bottles, where they had like a I think the label was dark glass and a metal tin, round tin that had a coloured Highland cow drawing on it. And they were a different colour for the 10, 12, 15, 18 and 21 year old. They were just transitioning from that to the double cask, the 15 sherry and the Victoriana. And I think this 18-year-old is a more modern bottling than the Highland cows, and probably slightly more modern than the double cask and the Victoriana. It is bottled at 46%, but it's not quite doing it for me. I think this one is going to be down there fighting it out with Johnny Walker, perhaps. And I am really surprised that it benefited so much from adding that water. I fully expected this to be, just from how harsh the nose was, I expected it to be sort of 48, 49, maybe 50%. And I thought that I'd knocked it down to around 46, where it really started to open up. But in my opinion, it really needed that water to knock it down from 46 to get it to open up, which I don't often find from whiskies that are well made. Now, I haven't had this new expression of Glen Scotia 18. I had the old Highland Cow bottling, and I think this is quite a different flavour profile. It's a flavour profile that you had on the range of Highland Cow bottlings. It was very creamy, a little bit of butyric, quite salty, and there was quite a prominent sort of sea scum, dimethyl sulfide, sea foam, rock pools, and sort of off milk notes, which is not a bad thing. I kind of miss the old Highland Cow bottles from Glen Scotia, but this is quite different. They have really reworked it. There is a creaminess, and now that I'm nosing it and I know what it is and I'm perhaps looking for it, I am getting a little bit of that off milk lactic funk quality, but probably not as much as they used to be. It definitely seems fresher, more youthful, and probably a little bit harsher than the old 18. Let's have another sip. Yeah, it's a perfectly enjoyable whiskey, but it's definitely several rungs below on the leaderboard compared to most of these whiskies. Well, they can't all be winners, can they? I'd say that this one, it's quite middle of the road, and if you had this with nothing else to compare it to, you'd be very grateful and you'd enjoy it. But I think even compared to something like the Glen Rothes 18 Soleo collection, that Glen Rothes had so much more going for it than this has got, which in a way is a shame, but like I say, they can't all be winners. If anything, I'd say that this one is probably a good benchmark for the rest of the leaderboard. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've been tasting along at home, let me know what you thought of Glen Scotia 18-year-old, and what do you think of Glen Scotia in general as a distillery, because it has to be said that it is a little bit of an unloved, slightly unpopular distillery, especially compared to its neighbour Springbank, and to be fair, they have been going to quite some lengths to revamp the range, and all credit to them, at least they're trying something new. So that's that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.